I think that was for the four. Carries. At this time, I'd like to invite our members of the public to have any comments they'd like to say. You've got a 3-minute window.
Unrelated to the budget.
Unrelated to the budget. Yes. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the first business item. This is the review of the 2026 budget presentation and fee schedule.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I will go over this relatively briefly. So we did refine and make some slight revisions to the budget presentation since we last met in October. And so I will primarily just highlight the changes that were made. If there are items that you all would like to discuss, please let me know. We can certainly pause and discuss those particular items. Can you go to the next slide, please? I won't speak much towards this slide. Very similar to the previous board meeting. However, I've been kind of working with the team to strategize how we best, in essence, tell our story. How does the district tell its story? What are the services we provide? What is inclusive of the monthly residential base service rate? So we've looked at how we can best revise and basically reflect those on an ongoing basis. And so we've kind of made some, not adjustments, but just some enhancements to how those items are listed. They've added some pieces such as the in-house local billing and account management. And just emphasizing all those services that are inclusive of that base service rates. To point out again, the proposal for this year does propose and recommend to retain the current base service rate of $26 per month, and then keep the additional services, the curbside green waste, which is an optional service, as well as the glass recycling, again at the same rate as 2025, so no change for 2026. Next slide, please. Budget highlights. This includes personnel and administration. Again, these are much more abbreviated than presented in previous months. So this budget does include still the recommended 3.5% COLA adjustments for 2026, the 2% merit increase based on satisfactory employee performance evaluations based on their hiring dates, the 6.9% premium rate increase for PDHP. We are seeing a slight decrease in URS premiums, which is excellent. And then the scrap and trailer program adjustments that we'll talk about just briefly. So still planning to pause or suspend the trailer fee-based program in 2026. We reallocated both of those full-time employees from the district trailer program to support scrap and other ancillary seasonal services, and as needed to support our side load regular collections. We reclassified 2 of the previous 4 scrap grounds crew positions to scrap driver positions. Those are the seasonal positions. And then since our last meeting, we have eliminated those 2 remaining scrap grounds crew positions. And I've requested that Helen move those monies for the budget one time in 2026 to our professional services category to cover potential additional costs to some of the studies that we have as a work in progress for financial analyses and other feasibility studies in 2026. So ultimately, the budget in itself, the revenues, the total expenditures, and the capital amounts are exactly the same as presented last month. Again, those 2 remaining scrap grounds per positions will be allocated. And moving forward in 2027, we'll look at making adjustments and reducing those costs if and where practical. Administrative initiatives, I won't go over these in detail, very similar to last month, just highlighting some of the initiatives we're looking at to streamline our functions, optimize our operations, enhance efficiencies, and ultimately reduce costs. Next slide, please. Operating expenses, again, no changes here, just highlighted a couple of pieces that are pertinent to some of the cost savings initiatives, but also some of the continued and anticipated increased fees that we're planning to absorb in 2026. One item that I did add, and the team has been very great, particularly Renee in this respect, is negotiating contract renewals and keeping those at the least cost possible. So both administratively and operationally, we do have some pretty large contracts that will go out to solicit for next year, largely the recycling processing for the materials recovery facilities next year. But our approach towards these contracts, whether they're new or renewals, would be to get the highest quality, best value as a whole. Next slide, please, and I will pass it off to Helen.
Okay, so this is the revenue side for the budget. Nothing has changed since we last programs. Again, so it's remove the revenue for the. Want to go to the next slide? If there are questions on this. Here is the only change here is that we eliminated the background tools into the better as mentioned. We reduced the seasonal labor number by 41,500 and the social security by 2,100. And then if we go to the next slide, please. This is where we've added into professional services. And I just want to mention again, we talked about this in October, but we did split out the bank fees, printing and postage, professional services from the other category here. And so you can see the professional services from October has increased 44,600, making it basically neutral for the bottom line. The 32,877,590 is the same number as proposed in other.
Helen, remind me again, professional, was that for our feasibility study?
Yeah, professional services includes the attorney fees, feasibility study, yes, but after that, we're posted successfully.
Thank you.
And then the next slide is the current capital facility.
Again, no changes here. In the previous month, we did have the administrative vehicle listed as for consideration. Here's the board was in support of that item, so we simply removed the words for consideration, and we do have some additional discussion pieces for that in a subsequent slide. But again, this is to replace the 8 replacements of the diesel versus the compressed natural gas trucks in 2026, with some of the carryovers from previous approved capital expense budgets. And again, those diesel trucks, as we discussed, come at a cost saving of $50,000 per units. Between the difference of a new compressed natural gas versus a diesel. Right, sure.
On the administrative pool vehicle, I know we had a conversation previously. Did we determine how much is spent just in reimbursement?
We have not, but I guess we could maybe speak for that briefly. I think overall, very few staff members in the past have submitted reimbursements for mileage. We're not entirely sure why that was the case, but we have in a subsequent slide identified an estimated conservative estimate of the miles that we would expect to put on this vehicle in 2026 and in subsequent months. But I don't know if Helen has a general number, but we're probably thinking $500 to $1,000 maybe.
Right, and as Evan said,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. For me, I don't think the reimbursement was the issue, it's the insurance in that they're using a private car or work for a business. And that's not smart, and it's not, I don't think it's necessarily the wisest situation for the employee. It just puts them at a higher liability. And Evan probably didn't want to drive one of the side hook trucks to any meeting. I asked him if he would, he said it didn't fit the car piece.
That's more exciting stories.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think for sure it's gonna be a cost. Right?
Yeah,
It won't be awesome by reimbursement, but I was saying it's the insurance issue, the liability there.
Does that answer your questions?
And that's the budget to buy the car, that's the budget for the car and gas and insurance, and that's just to buy the vehicle, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Do we have a line item for the total cost?
As for the ongoing spending.
Yeah, just the budgeted item for a pool vehicle.
Not specifically, but we do have, repair and maintenance costs built into our budget, fuel and things of that nature as well.
Part of why I'm asking this question is because our own city, we don't have, like, city manager, everyone, it's all own vehicles, so part of it is I'm curious. Our own city, so. Okay, very good.
Ultimately, there will be a very large convenience factor with this vehicle. I think staff will feel more comfortable going out in the field and supporting our operations, but ultimately, as we go to a lot of conferences, and travel to a lot of the various partner cities, instead of having to rent a vehicle or try to coordinate or orchestrate that, this will be shared. It will be something that will basically have an ability to book it on our outlet calendars. But ultimately, the estimated repair and fuel costs would be fairly de minimis, I would say, especially with respect to our overall fleet repair and maintenance costs, good for our data.
Awesome.
Rachel, would you just for consumption here, just to remind everyone the insurance issue that was really the
Liabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't here last month, so I don't know what was discussed, but the idea is that if a person is driving a personal vehicle during company time, the employer will be liable for what happens when the driver is using their personal vehicle. And that's fine, and that's it's not illegal to do that, but you would have to rely on the insurance that the person has on their own vehicle. So you're kind of hoping that everyone is properly insuring themselves, and you're gonna be dealing with, however many different insurance companies. It just depends on which person is driving, and some insurance companies are better than others, and then it's like, you ask each individual to provide proof of insurance or, the minimum level. It's just a pain to manage, and a lot of places do that. It's, like I said, it's not like a bad option, it's just that's the issue you're dealing with. And if the insurance rejects a claim or isn't enough for the claim, then it's gonna fall back straight. So if it's our vehicle, we can manage that better. We can understand the amount of insurance coverage that we have for it is gonna be swept in more to our general insurance. And it's just easier to keep tabs on making sure we've got the right thing, rather than, alternatively, I would maybe suggest, requiring every employee who's gonna be driving a vehicle for work to provide insurance and look at all that, and that's a lot. So this is a good idea. And then, then you get the question of, are you gonna make mileage reimbursements, which is also not required, but it's data, so this just kind of makes it clean and easy.
especially if there was something catastrophic and it was negligence on the part of the driver, then they can sue the district, correct?
They would, if they're operating the vehicle on time purposes, it would come back to us, and then we're like, well, we hope you have good insurance, because it wasn't anything we bought,
Yeah.
Interesting, just a side note, you have to declare if you are driving for your business, and a lot of times your insurance companies ask you to declare that, and then they increase your insurance rates, thinking that you're driving for your own company, so.
Yes. And that might be a reason they would deny it. Like,
Yeah.
You didn't say that you needed to
Claim
claim. It's really citizens, and it's
Sorry,
just.
I didn't mean to get the whole group off, so I appreciate this. I was just curious.
Thanks,
Good,
Dan.
good insight.
Yeah, it's actually important to know.
And we are pursuing a hybrid fuel vehicle. We've already received some quotes. Board member Sudbury last month, provided the idea of looking at a lease option. So we'll be looking at all of those as we move into 26, presuming that this item is approved as part of. Ultimately, I think it'll provide a lot of peace of mind to a lot of the staff, including myself, should we move forward with this administrative. Next slide, please. So a couple updates from this particular slide. So last month, we presented on a single RFP as opposed to two that we're proposing now. And one of this item here is related to a subsequent agenda item, item 5.5, which we'll talk about later. But instead of a single very large scale, RFP and analysis, we are proposing now to split that into two separate RFPs and studies. And so the first one, which has been a work in progress, is what we're calling here the feasibility evaluation and the impact analysis of the city of Harriman's withdrawal request. And so we've been working and collaborating with the city of Harriman on a particular document. And as we continue to reflect on that and look at some of the content as to how the scope of that particular solicitation has now grown, we feel that scope has now become far too complex for a single solicitation. That's something that we'd like to split out into two separate studies at this time, but I think will, one, get us more tailored responses that are more specialized in these types of analyses that we're looking at. And two, ultimately have better results, better specialized results, and for Harriman, focusing more on the material impacts and those evaluation criteria that are set forth in Utah code. In reviewing and learning many things that I have in my close to 3 months of the organization, I've actually learned quite a bit. I've actually impressed myself, which is rare. I feel strongly that we have currently all of the necessary data and information that would be necessary to move forward with the feasibility evaluation and that related impact. So we understand the number of routes and trucks and tonnages. We understand the number of containers and cans. So we have a really well informed understanding as to what information will be relevant for that. And of course, that will be more time that we'll be spending to support whoever the hired consultant is to conduct that evaluation. And so conversely, and secondary to this is what we're terming here as a line of service financial assessment by geographic service. And that's the separate study we'd like to split this into that would focus on the district as a whole and really take a deep dive into our financial costs as it pertains to each program. So what does it cost for our trash collection services, our recycle, our green waste, our scrap program, for example, but also looking at that, which a lot of I understand the city lines are distinct, but in often cases in our operations, they're largely blurred. So looking at it from a geographic service area, we feel will yield a lot of really invaluable results to the organization as we continually assess our costs and look to reduce those costs and make sure that we're providing the best service we can at the most reasonable rates possible. So the idea here is to separate this study out to be more focused on the financial piece as opposed to the feasibility and impact analysis, but ultimately to focus on all of our cost parameters and our related service areas. And this could, in essence, help to identify more optimal potential fee structure models in future years. We want to have varying fees based on different geographic service areas. And this is one of the pieces that we reallocated those scrapped ground crew positions to make sure we had enough funding to support this study, which again would be more comprehensive and would be district-wide, and it wouldn't be necessarily predicated on the former piece we discussed regarding the feasibility of that. So that's kind of the thought there, and the strategy we think will yield better results, be more focused. And one of the concerns we had as the initial RFP kind of grew is whether or not we would get enough qualified respondents or if we'd even get respondents at all, because the scope was rather robust. And again, we feel like it's become too complex for one single solicitation, and then splitting this up in two seems to be the best strategic path forward.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, especially with new leadership, it's always good to have assessment of cost structure and different things so that we can really evaluate and make sure, like you said, that we are doing things as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So I think it makes a lot of sense to split that up.
Agreed.
Seeing heads up.
And this will come up again as we get towards agenda item 5.5. The other two items here, again, have not changed. So we've still included the computer desk chair replacements as part of an initiative for an office team. And again, as we discussed last month, our chairs are rather outdated, and I agree, are very uncomfortable and not very well ergonomically designed nor adjusted. So the county's pursuing office chair replacements. I know these chairs aren't that comfortable either. This would be a shared expense, but first we're looking at trying to enhance the desk chairs that our administrative team or managers sit at on a monthly basis. But I think they would greatly appreciate that investment for those particular assets.
Yep, again, I think that the people you want to stay here all day should have comfortable chairs. The people you want to get in, get out should have these chairs.
Well
You
said.
stole my line, Sharon.
Okay, question. So I know that we obviously increased our fee. And I always have a hard time when we increase the fee and then we want to spend more than that's tricky for me. Are there things on here that you would prioritize? Are we all financially sound and we're good to, I know that we're kicking it off to where we don't have to add an increase. And we're doing some cost savings, which I appreciate. Are there things, should we bite it all off now? Are there some things that are more important? Is our budget good enough and sound enough that this is not an issue?
Meaning the chairs?
Just, well, yeah, it's just all, and I just want, I mean,
It sounds like the second study is budget neutral because of the moving over the two employees, right? So that second item is budget neutral.
If not budget positive,
Yeah.
because it's a one-time expense, not an annual.
Ongoing expense. So you could say that by getting rid of those two employees ongoing, and so these are only one-time expenses, it really long-term would be budget positive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, I do think that the line of service assessment.
Oh, did you guys lose us for a minute?
it was so good.
I saw it flashing.
Are they still there? Maybe not.
Yeah, we lost.
Now.
Hear you now.
Yeah, I think the owl rebooted. What did you guys miss?
All
Basically, Matt's been asking, the priority and necessity of these items and basically is the budget healthy enough to absorb these?
Well, and I get it, and I understand, look, we have a new leader, I'm sure that you come in, and I would probably do the same thing and say, what are some of the needs? I'm coming in, I'm brand new to this, what can I show for some goodwill and build a team here? Super important. I just know that I just want to make sure that, is it all good to happen now? Do we do some of it now? Do we wait? But if we're okay financially and it's not going to have an impact, and then we're 3 meetings away talking about an increase, that would jive for me.
No, I think that's about.
But if we're good, we're good.
I kind of looked at that first feasibility evaluation, you know, when Harriman said, I think it's time for us to leave. It went back to, well, how do they leave? And it really, we don't know how that is going to look. And so I think it's really important. That first part is, what's the impact analysis? I think we need to know that for future.
That's,
use.
you have to.
Exactly. And has to pay for that impact. The feasibility study, that's our responsibility here. Yeah. And I'm praying that the line of service financial assessment, chief area service, comes up with enough data to show how we can at least maybe recoup that in some cost savings. So.
Yeah, this morning we were discussing that. It can, by looking at the geographic aspect of it, where services are needed and how we can maximize the value within that area. And so the line of service is important because as we see, and Lori understands, is that the islands, how they get, where they go. Do they to a large unit that has all those abilities to service those provide those products, or do they not? And then does Wolford still maintain those services, or can they again look at where they can acquire in competition with anybody? But it makes sense for some of those areas to be serviced by us because we're already there. But it also is supported by the routes. So if the route takes by there, that's another opportunity. That increases your cash flow, which need patient tables and chairs.
I do appreciate that. That's a key question on every item.
Because
Is it now? Can we put it off? What's the impact?
And you can't put it off forever. You can't. And the only reason I ask is because I don't want to ever be in a position where, if Sherry here, who's leaving anyway, what a wonderful gift she has given all of us. No.
You can only keep you, Sherry. We're gonna take that first line.
She knows it, and she loves it. But, you know, I want this organization to last as long as we can and for it to be as healthy as we can, which means that we are the ones that have to make tough decisions. Because if we do this study and if Harriman is able to actually leave, I am a little nervous that some of us get a little skittish and we start thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be the last one holding the bag. So I just think about these expenses as we go, because every time we increase and COLAs and merits, then it makes it tougher. And then I get called out on social media accounts about what I said, why are we not using ACE or all these other people? So I have to ask the question so that we don't have meetings to, in a couple of months talking about how we need more money. But you can't say no to this stuff forever. People need chairs, people need desks. So there is a time, and I just ask, can we bite it all off now?
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when we started the chair discussion, chairs that we are currently using are quite 20 years old. I mean, I feel like we can make a really reasonable case for chairs.
Well, I remember when Pam was leaving, I was asking, so what do we, she's like, chairs this was something I asked, so I mean, that's an obvious thing.
And then, I mean, you guys understand the insurance implications more than I do.
So so let me ask you on that. We don't have any surplus vehicles of any kind? There aren't any that are sitting, you're talking about the liability. No, they're all actual huge trucks.
Not all, so we do have a very slim light duty vehicle. So that's, present on the next level, before you go there, and I'll kind of go back to that discussion. I will say that we've looked at these one-time purchases objectively, and these are the items that we've identified, at least for the time being, as being priority for. So we've looked at these in a very prudent way. This is not necessarily just a wish.
Yes.
Renee, can you go to slide 33, please? And so one thing that I did want to say earlier on, and I'll take it now, is the final budget operating expenses. If you go, sorry, 33, warehouse percent. So coming into the organization, you know, Board Member Holton, you kind of pointed out exactly what do we need, what are needs versus wants, what's a comprehensive wish list.
Yeah.
But also, of course, as you mentioned, trying to build that rapport and support. 100%. One thing that I started to glean in the first 3 months, and something that I feel strongly about, that I have a lot of ideas where I see a lot of opportunities to save costs, to reduce costs, and next year and in subsequent years. But we need some time to really, fully assess those before we can bring those forward. And those reduced cost ideas would not be intended by any way to reduce the level of services. So that's something that I will continue to focus on, and that the team will continue to focus on. So what I wanted to point out here is that looking at an estimated for 2025 compared to the original budget, so we are estimated we're going to be coming in under our total expenses by nearly $2 million. In some cases, so that 31.292 million versus the 29.5 million. Of course, we still do have the capital outlays, but moving forward to the proposed 2026, the way that Alan and I have a similar philosophy. So we are conservatively underestimating projected revenues, while conservatively overestimating projected expenses. And that way we make sure we come out and have some, we have capabilities to absorb additional costs that may be anticipated or that aren't really budgeted in this proposal. So I would say, and I feel like, Helen, I'll defer to you as well, but I feel confident we do have sufficient funds in this budget to support these minimal one-time purchases, which we look at how years and we'll be reallocating this budget on a continuous basis. Also to point out that we've looked at our cash projections for several out years and several scenarios that was presented to us last month's board meeting. And our cash projections are looking rather favorable. And I'm hoping to actually postpone any fee increases beyond 2027 if and where practical, given some of these cost savings and opportunities that are running for study in 2020. Anything else, Jeff?
Correct, I think we do have a big wish list, and we have already gone through all of those items and dwindled it down to what you here consider now after limiting things that we don't want to portray in. And the answer is yes, we can.
Okay. That's perfect. And I think in the future, I don't know what's going to happen. Harriman will figure that all out. In the future, I'm going to probably want to figure out, because we have a line item up there that says, how is this going to financially impact the district? And without me knowing how that financially impacts the district, when that's lingering out here and then adding additional expenses without knowing what the future holds, these are not big enough things that are going to make or break the district by any means. But if down the road, if we have not figured out what that solution is and what the dollars and cents for the rest of us would be if they do leave, I'm going to want a little more assurity on the overall health. Because again, one of the line items is this city wants to leave, and we don't know what that looks like financially yet. Though I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe it's not a problem because y'all are far out there.
Yeah, I think that's been something that we discussed even in our meetings with our fee stuff. It's like,
Yeah, so
maybe it's, we're just so far out of your main hub, maybe it's expensive to service us and it's
So
a benefit. Exactly.
Anyway, I'm good. That's all.
And the ongoing evaluation will help us to be better informed on those topics. Yeah, regarding. Can you go to slide, measure the full vehicle utilization? So board member Holton, to answer your questions, on the table here is the district's existing light duty vehicle assets. That lists the assignment by position and the usage, which those are all reflected in the date. So my understanding, this district has kind of become very slim in its administrative light duty vehicles. So all these vehicles, in some cases, have very high mileage, but as the previous presentation and also the previous slide points out, is that all of these vehicles are assigned entirely to our operations team. It does not include managers or some of our executive teams. So those are used by our supervisors and folks that are in the field on a basis. These vehicles are in some cases available on an intermittent basis, but they're guaranteed to be available. And they're oftentimes being used in the field as initially. So right now, we go out on vehicles and routine during regular business hours, mobile hours, and use on a daily basis for all those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Great, and she's doing. Robert Lockdown. Like you said. I want to strongly recommend we get the chairs to retain employees, provide a healthy work environment, and allow the district to support staff. In the business of design and construction, we use the 300 $3 square foot in design, $30 square foot in rent, and $300 square foot in salaries per year. Justifying and supporting the $30 square foot in favor of supporting the most valuable asset, the staff. Can you say what's up?
And so the top table here is new. So Renee did a lot of research and communicating with a lot of our staff members, and this is again a conservative estimate and largely all inclusive. I think having a full vehicle available for usage will really enhance some of our operations team, the managers that don't have the opportunity to go in the field, their presence in the field to conduct better route audits, get things from an efficiency perspective. Although we have kind of looked at and listed by position there, the anticipated usage for 2026 across all the main positions that we would be looking to use this vehicle. And so the total miles, although not your standard utilization, we do have an estimated amount of 6,500 miles that this vehicle will improve, at least on the first year or on an annual basis thereafter, but very likely to improve on mileage as we get this fleet, enhance the usage and the utilization.
It's probably not.
Correct. So we received a couple quotes. The main vehicles we looked at are mid-size SUVs that are hybrid SUVs. They also have third row seating capabilities. So the one that we're leaning towards currently is a Toyota. It's a hybrid. Has that third row seating, which is going to be the most comfortable route. Probably from a short transportation distance, comfortably have 6 people in the vehicle.
And as a Korean, I recommend the Hyundai, but go ahead. Okay.
The reason I bring that up is Ford F-350s, is not the most economic. Get them somebody around. I would.
Zach, they are very comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
You have anybody in my size.
So,
Yeah. That's the only thing we consider.
that's 6% in the vehicle.
There's the bed of the truck.
And then also as part of these existing vehicles, there are 2 that are marked with this risk, I believe. Those are also proposed for replacements in 2026. Replacing those with smaller size trucks that are, we don't want 1 ton or 3/4 ton trucks. We are replacing those and kind of since right size of the fleet.
was gonna say that, he's the last fair. The first one.
$120,000.
No, that's literally 4,000 is where it's not. So,
I think much with that vehicle, David may know who's here, he's also similar in height to you. But that's our safety coordinator is currently driving that around, and ultimately, if that is the case, we're gonna maximize it.
that is the nice thing, truck people have got, especially these.
Excellent. So that was a new piece for this particular budget presentation. Then next slide, please. So not a lot of changes here on these new prospective proposed fees. They are included in the final drafted fee schedule for 2026. We do have a couple updates on the payment transaction fee. The two on the bottom, the same as the last one, the late setup term pickup fee and recycling contamination fee. As for the payment transaction fee, we would like the board to consider adopting that up to 3% payment during this meeting as part of our schedule adoption of this resolution. So we did solicit a RFP for merchant services for payment processing. A few months ago, we received 10 proposals, at which time Helen and her team have scheduled presentations, essentially interviews with these vendors. So we don't have the exact specifics as to what those models, what those costs, and what those net zero pieces will look like. And so at this time, evaluating those, we would not be planning to implement this fee until a vendor is chosen. But ultimately, we would bring back the detailed plan to this board before we decide to implement it and describe how we would impose the fee and when we would use. As part of that, we'll bring back formal proposals to this board and be identifying ideally several avenues for customers to avoid this fee via different payment mechanisms. So we're thinking January, February, we probably come back with a proposal with specifics.
So why don't we just do a budget amendment at the time?
I think
Is a fee increase, it requires a hearing. So we're just trying to.
I would just say the same thing I've said before, and I understand what you're trying to say, because there's a lot of different options that have to happen. But this is a service they've been able to get for the fee. And so you are increasing the fee for somebody who utilizes credit cards. I understand why, but also understand that it is a fee.
I agree with Sherry, and I think I'm fine with doing this as long as we have one or several easy ways for people to avoid that. But I get it. I have to, I don't know, I think I have Salt Lake City Water. I think with them, I have to pay a fee if I use a credit card. I don't pay a fee if I do a bank draw. That's fine. I just connect my bank to it.
And I think this, sorry, go ahead.
I think fairly on the same thing, that we're fine with this as long as there are hopefully multiple opportunities.
Yeah. This is just one of those items that there's a long list, or maybe not super long, but a list of items that really don't have much to do with the service that we're providing, the quality, the fact that we're talking about all the green waste and the glass and all these things. This is just an operational, I look at it just like the mail. I would love to, I was shocked when I heard how much money we spend on mailing out bills. Pretty crazy. These things, in my mind, if we want to keep costs down, and if we want to try to extend it as far out as humanly possible, raising a fee, we've got to look at every and any one of these things that aren't about picking the trash out. So, but yes, with the other options, you can do a draft ACH per awesome. And it seems to be pretty common nowadays as well.
It's the same, even like you're talking like maybe, okay, if you want to get the mail invoice, then you pay I mean, you know.
I actually, I was actually,
7 months.
I was telling Evan about this. I didn't realize until just a few weeks ago, I was still signed up to get them mail notices. And so I don't know if we might want to charge an invoice or, a cost for that, or maybe if we have people who always pay online, we consider sending out a letter saying, we're going to opt you out of getting this, receiving your bill, unless you want to be opted in.
So from my understanding, we cannot opt people out. I can encourage them and give them incentive to do electronic billing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Payment methods, so more or less focus people into, this is better for a business because it's cheaper for us to do business this way.
Yeah.
When someone's new, can you not provide that service?
That's the question.
Because I think that needs to happen. If you are over a certain age, maybe, but I don't know legally.
Whoa.
Age
Discrimination. So you're discriminating.
Well, I was gonna say above 100, but I don't know if can you opt people out if they're brand new, or you're not in?
You know, he's got a really good point. How many times do you go in and get a new service? You never get a snail mail invoice. You always give me, we can
So the
go
other,
into that. That'd be something.
Because I feel like I'm signing up for new stuff, I'm not getting.
Yeah, this is actually not a new conversation we have.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, I mean, I actually always point out, 6 months to a year ago, that what about, eliminating the expense? When this conversation came up initially about even doing charging for anything. So I was very much against that. Charging me to pay, right? Like, the concept just drives me crazy. But on the other hand, we provide our customers so many different ways to pay. As long as we're bundling them to free ones that cost us less money, that I'm more tolerant of that. And along with that was, how do we get people on that? We're not paying. We're having a campaign. So to really drive that initiative should be part of our cost saving measures that we should do. So.
and I apologize for getting us off topic with that.
No,
But I will say the last,
Yeah.
the last thing, the other thing that I suggested was maybe next year we do a fee increase, and it's waived
Go online.
if you opt out of paper billing. And then that way, it kind of is. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
That one sounds the most fun.
As long as we say it was Tom's idea.
That's fine.
Not that exactly. In virtually everything you buy, you're paying credit card fees when they buy with credit card.
Yeah.
So we can build it into the price and then offer a cash discount if you want to. Or, one of these other methods, with that, you get a discount instead of a surcharge for paying the credit card. It's the same thing, but you're just doing it the other way. That's the way the main card industry prefers you to do it. Visa, MasterCard, they build these PCI standards, registry standards, and they build them around the fact that, yes, everybody knows that their fees are included. It's a cost of doing business within the price. If you want to offer a discount for cash or a discount for whatever.
Again, I apologize, I'm gonna stop bringing things up, because we could have been done by now.
You're fine. So just to kind of summarize and make sure that we all understand what we're being proposed here is that this is a payment transaction fee with up to 3% that won't be assigned, but it avoids having a public hearing for the new budget process, at which point we can address what and where are these things to later. So that's kind of what the proposal is. I think all of everybody's points are great points that we need to definitely focus on. I'm sure we're getting crazy with like, what's the 3 billion? What are we doing to make sure that that people can avoid this as a fee increase, you know, again, it is. It is optionally towards someone's.
Have now, it's gonna go away.
So I think that the board is pretty well established the opinion of that, you know, we're not necessarily for the idea, but we understand that maybe there's a need for it. And so long as we are not making this on everybody, I think most of us can probably swallow it under very specific conditions that we obviously would make sure we address. And what we can never gets put on.
Now, I'll give you a call and opportunity to provide any additional insight into this, before we get into the discussion of getting on thinking right now. And I think also, we did point out last month, but also in the presentation today, that I need to look at reducing our mailing costs by going from these, this isn't one of them, a full 8.5 by 11 full paper folded to maybe a postcard option, continually pursuing and advocating for folks to sign up for it. Smart. We're looking at all of those.
A lot of moving parts in this.
Next page, please. So this is just formality of just a repeat from last month. This is the proposed tentative fee schedule that was presented last month. The red items indicate changes from 2025 going into 2026. The budget information that is presented as part of the resolution hearing includes an abbreviated version of the full budget that was just presented during this presentation, and a cleaned up version without the red line with a fee schedule exactly as shown here, just without the. Any questions on fee changes?
Okay, yeah, done.
I believe so.
Okay.
Who's the other?
Then you're good to take it.
Motion to open.
Hold on. So
Second.
I will now.
Has been moved.
I will now take a motion about the public hearing.
Roberts is unhappy, right? That was not for me.
Robert. Motion and second.
There's motion,
Second.
second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very much, very soon. Public hearing is. Let's do that.
Would you like a motion to close?
We have a motion.
Close it.
We would do a motion.
Yes.
But no, yeah.
Okay.
So, this is a hearing on the 2026 budget and payment increase. So I think we would need a motion for that.
Close. Very good.
Very good, that, yeah. Now we need to see if there's any member of the.
Public would like to have a conference.
You guys did go. Everybody's. Don't be too smart.
You know, they bring up some good points.
If there's anybody online, I don't know if we can hear you. Is it just Lori's mic picking up? Yeah, you should be able to.
Would you like a motion?
I'm gonna say that that's all the public comment we have, so I guess we'll take a motion now.
So moved.
Second, Sherry?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sherry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Sorry about that. I was confused for a minute. All right, continue business items. We are 5.1. Consider the adoption of resolution 4437, a resolution adopting the 2026 fee schedule and adopting identified fee increase on new fees.
I move that we adopt resolution. Sorry, 4437, resolution adopting the budget and fee schedule and adopt identified fees, increases and new fees.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have a second?
Let's keep it second.
Thank you, Keith. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We don't have to.
We can all have to do that. We don't have to.
It passed.
Okay, that was.
Can you say any opposed, because I just don't.
I don't know. It's just an option. I gotta say aye.
You just said motion
Yes.
passed.
I gotta say aye, and then I'll say, any opposed? All right, motion carries as well. Let's get it. Usually by early.
It's almost the end of your year.
I will do it again. It's fine.
We're laying that.
It's just because it's dark outside. All right, 5.2, we're gonna confirm or cancel the date for the next board meeting and budget adoption scheduled for Monday, December 15th, 2025. Any discussion about that?
It's pretty typical unless we aren't able to pass the budget tonight. We cancel the December meeting, since we all need so many more meetings in December. So
So I will take a motion.
motion to cancel the date for the next board meeting and budget adoption scheduled for Monday, December 15th, 2025 at 9 a.m.
Second, Anna from Taylorsville, happy to do this.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Anna. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Barry still has to show.
Any of us?
Yeah, Sherry.
Motion
I
carries.
got to pay for 2 hours.
That's the old, moving on, budget pre-approved 2026 boards meeting calendar. Oh, we got it up there already. We've already, unless you want to say something, I'll say something, but we've already kind of looked through this and identified, as many dates as we should. The light blue ones are kind of the pre-board meetings, they don't affect you guys at all. So if anybody doesn't have any obvious conflicts with this calendar, or,
Katarina's going to say something.
sorry, Katarina, take it away.
Okay, board meetings are scheduled for the fourth week of each month, with the exception of May, which will be moved to the third week, Monday, May 18th. A separate invitation will be sent for the November meeting and public hearing on Mondays, November 16th at 6 p.m., as well as a separate invitation should the board choose to meet Monday, December 14th.
So we can go ahead and motion to cancel December 14th.
Enforcing.
Depends on how much you talk. Depends on if you want to buy a share. All right, I'll entertain a motion this time.
Motion to approve 2026 board meeting calendar.
Thank you, Emily. Second.
Second, and Tom Desire.
Ron, thanks very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Budget for consideration for the 2026 board vice chair. Board chair Schultz, I did not get on there. Oh, it's just.
That would be you.
It's you talking.
I'm reading it badly, sorry.
I like to the sharing.
I would say, usually this is, if nobody's volunteering, so I would put my hat back in the ring if nobody really wants to do that, I'm happy to do it again, so just throw that out. But, feel free to converse.
Sorry, can I just make a point here? So what we had talked about previously in our pre-board meetings is, we just wanted to mention that this is gonna be on the schedule for January, because we'll have a lot of new board members next year. So we're not actually deciding today, but we'll be entertaining, if anyone's like super interested in getting involved, to please let, Evan or Kevin or Greg or Emily know. That typically the way that it's been done here is that it's kind of a 2-year obligation. Expect to be the vice chair the first year,
and then roll into the chair the next year. That's not mandatory. We're not predetermining that, but that's just been kind of the way it goes. Typically, not having someone super brand new get involved, although it is really useful at some point in your career to be involved. I think that's what folks have said. So with Greg finishing his term as chair, the thought is that Emily would be moving into the chair position. That's the expectation, but that's obviously the board's discretion. And so that's why the conversation is looking at a new vice chair. So if anyone's interested in that, will let us know. Otherwise, we'll just see what happens in January. Let's go. We'll force someone.
Sure, someone will get voluntold, so.
That's, but especially
Here after 3 p.m. tomorrow.
okay. Exactly. I'm sure your canvas.
Canvas.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Chairman, just wanna throw something out for that January meeting regarding the new members. And I don't know if it's in our bylaws, I probably should have looked. But it would be awesome if people were appointed from their city for the 4-year term. If we could have that discussion, or if it's not,
Is that not what's happening?
I think some cities like to rotate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes
because
they change every year.
Every year we.
And it kind of makes it hard.
I need to make that clear that the by statute, the expectation is that these are 4-year terms.
Oh, so that's the statute.
That's
Oh,
what
it is, it's staff.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
It's not gonna happen.
That is not. Yeah, because that really, because I do feel like there we rehashed a lot of issues because people are new and want to
But if you prepare like a letter that says, this is how
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
things work and.
And
It's just.
Yeah.
It can change at any time. I mean, like.
The tricky part with that though, right, is you could only be appointed if you are starting a brand new term.
That's true. And so that's why
So
I'm
if
saying,
someone were to
like,
lose and then you need to
Exactly.
fill, you couldn't.
that's why I'm saying, like, it's not, we don't hold you to it
Yeah.
hard and fast, ideally, technically, yes.
Does
That, it actually worked that way
Does
with me.
the appointee have to be an elected official?
Yes,
Yeah.
It does.
Not every board does that.
well,
I think it also, I mean,
in the tech vanity you are, but for special districts, it's always,
Gotcha.
yeah.
and I think, I generally agree that it should be 4-year term, but I think that it does make it difficult for some cities who have, well, yes, every city who has election cycles staggered to be able to put on someone new. And my city would always be District 2 or District 4.
Because
If you help people to the 4, is what he's saying, depending.
But it sounds like we could at least hold them with the 2 years.
So you appoint someone, if they lose their election, then okay, but I mean, it's not like, you know, like they would address that at that point. Like, I don't think you should withhold appointing someone because you don't think they might be able to fill a 4-year term.
What she's saying is our bylaws are flexible.
Yeah.
It's just like technically it's just statutes.
So what I've heard.
So you could theoretically appoint someone and then not talk to us again for 4 years. You know, like we would still consider that person appointed for 4 years. But obviously that doesn't always happen because of schedules and elections. People just, you know. We've also had times, and I'm not saying in this board, but like in districts in general, if you have an issue with board not coming very frequently, never showing up to meetings, we might politely ask, is there someone else who might be able to be in this position that can participate?
Do we have a minimum requirement, like, before we, before you get the truancy officer called to your house?
I don't,
That's Renee.
you have that in.
Truancy officer.
And even if there was, it would be like, we could maybe ask, but it's not.
Okay.
It's up to this.
Great.
So just something to think about.
Everyone wants more meetings, I'm sure.
We will go ahead and carry on to 5.5, the status update of the RFP for this is almost done.
Thank you, yes, and I'll be brief, and I'll let Rachel chime in. So as part of the board packet, this was a memorandum that Rachel had provided previously to the board. And then I think she alluded that there was some updates to it, so I had her update this document. I thought I changed the date in the document sending Rachel, unfortunately had an auto update.
Oh,
But I swear before I PDF it, I changed it back to the date that you sent this to me, which was September 11th. This is a just refresher as part of this memorandum. I'll let Rachel speak to this. But first and foremost, for this item, we're essentially looking for the board's consent as for splitting the RFPs out that we already discussed as part of the budget. So I think we're probably okay on that front. The second item, which I think warrants some discussion, is pertaining to whether or not the feasibility study and that related impact analysis should include a survey of Harriman community residents as part of that. So, to my understanding, there's been discussion amongst this board in the past, and to my understanding that the board was on kind of the affirmative portion of including some sort of a Harriman City impartial third-party survey as part of this analysis. And this has been a point of somewhat disagreement amongst our discussions with the city of Harriman, administrative team, and work. So ultimately, as we look for this board to ultimately make a decision as to Harriman's withdrawal request, we feel that, as the staff feel that it would be prudent for a survey to be included as part of this feasibility analysis and related impact assessments.
Can you share your reasonings why you feel like that should be included?
I think there's several, but maybe I'm gonna pass this off to Rachel if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, as to that question particularly, it kind of goes back to the withdrawal statute itself and the statutory mechanisms to actually effectuate the withdrawal. The primary method to do a withdrawal is to have a citizen's petition to leave the area. That was like purposefully negotiated to be the primary method. And so if you're having a resident petition, it's clear that that's what the residents want. And so the statute provides an alternative method of withdrawal, which is this one that we're kind of looking at, which is if both the city, if you're talking about a full city, if the city council and this board itself kind of like mutually agree to do it, and it satisfies all the requirements of the statute, that's like the second method. But the thinking is, would we even want to pursue, going down that path if we don't feel like we still have the essence of the primary purpose of the withdrawal statute satisfied, which is knowing that this is something that the residents want. That's
So
kind of the thinking.
Sorry, go ahead.
one thing I know about Harriman is I feel like, first off, I don't think I'd be in favor of doing a survey. I think there's too many issues. Unless we're going to incur the cost and do a true legitimate survey, I cannot tell you how many surveys that are put in newsletters or things where residents take part in public policy. Then the effect would be is that public policy needs to match whatever that survey is. And that is rarely ever truly legitimately accurate. It may be very accurate to the people that are paying attention to this very narrow way that you're gathering the data, but that is not true legitimate data. Now, if we're going to go out there and we're going to pay for a scientific polling of the residents, which I don't think we have the resources to do. Even then, if we did do that, I think that the leadership of Harriman would also say, wonderful, thank you so much. We also did do a poll, and the poll is that they elected these people, and these people, because you don't have to get a petition from residents to all say that we want to join a district. The city and city council can make decisions to join. I don't know why it would be different. I get in statute, there is a mechanism for residents to do so and to petition, but I don't know if that should be the standard. I think that if Sherry and I think if the other elected officials, and frankly, I'm saying this because if we came to my city and the elected officials in Cottonwood Heights felt very strongly about this and it was the best thing for the future of our city, I don't think I'd appreciate if people said, thank you for your opinion, but we're now going to go survey your residents. We don't do that on anything else.
I would
disagree to the point that actually petition is the primary method of annexing into a district. And the primary method of creating a district is an actual election on election day. So that is entirely part of the creation and annexing process.
However, Harriman never petitioned to enter this.
You were unincorporated at the time.
Exactly, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying our residents did, and I would say that this was discussed in our meetings, thank you for your comments. We were never indicated we were opposed to even a survey. What we were opposed to was doing it well before we have data. You can't come to our residents and say, hey, do you want to leave the district or not, based on what? And so we said, let's talk about it at the end of all this data gathering. And I agree exactly what you're saying. In my mind, it's backwards, and the threshold of the petition is absurd to withdraw from the district. I don't know how to say it better. In my mind, it's absurd. But that being said, it's what it is. But I think that we need to go down the process of gathering the data. The first thing I think is the district should know what it costs to service everywhere. I think that we should know that whether we were deciding to leave or not, we should know that. And I think that I agree, I think we're pretty close to knowing that. I think that you've done a great job of gathering data. I just don't think that we've collected it in a manner right now where we can understand all of that, because it's critical for us to know what it costs to serve. It's just important, right? For us to be good stewards of funds, we need to know that. And then it should be very simple at that point to pull Harriman's part out of it. So that RFP portion of it for us should be pretty simple. What does it cost? How does that lay over that? Then we really understand all that stuff. Then we could talk about, do we survey? What does it look like? Those types of things. But I agree, you send our incorrect message sometimes. Do I send a survey out right now that says, hey, right now we have bids that you could pay $6 cheaper per month on your garbage. What would you say as a resident?
Please.
Yeah. Exactly. So it'll all depend on kind of questions you have and things like that, how things are presented, whether or not you get.
And the motives
Exactly.
are opposing.
Exactly. And so that's the hard thing for us. That's why we've been the hard no on doing that as part of this initial RFP process, is because let's get the data. Let's figure out what it costs.
So you're saying you're fine doing a survey of residents, you just want to have all of the information in place first. Is that my understanding?
I'll tell you that as a team, that what we've discussed, or what we discussed at our meeting with these guys was, let's get the data. And then we can discuss the polling, or, the survey, or whatever we call it. But surveys can be just so skewed.
Oh, they didn't, I feel like in general, we always make better decisions as elected officials or in our jobs or anything with more information. And you're right, it's an imperfect measure, but it is a measure. And I get worried when, and I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but when elected officials are like, oh, the people don't really know, we know better. And like I said, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but when, I've just seen this in other settings where they're like, oh, we don't need to talk to people because they don't understand the issue. I understand it so much better. And I'm like, we still do live in a democracy where we do want to really understand what people are saying. And so I like what you're saying though about putting the cart before the horse, which is, it sounds like what you're saying is that we don't have enough information to ask the intelligent questions at this point. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But and ultimately, it doesn't sound to me like the survey really is a deciding factor. It's one piece. It's what's the language like? They do when they do like applying to grad school, or whatever. It's like your holistic review. Like it's one piece in a holistic review of looking at the impact on how people feel about this. So for me, I think more data is always good, but I do like a lot what you're saying is we don't have the information to ask the kind of questions.
Let me ask this question, because it eventually comes to this board to vote. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
We collectively have to make a decision and vote. You can leave, can't leave. Is that right?
We would start by passing a resolution just to say that we intend to pursue it. Like, we're not even to that part yet. Both entities would pass an intent resolution and hearing procedure.
And I guess everyone needs to ask the question of themselves is when we get to that point and we cast a vote, are you voting based on, again, I do not represent the residents of Harriman. I'm not accountable to,
Say that when you're on this board, you represent the entire district.
That is, this should be.
Yeah.
That's what it's at. You don't represent all of us.
and there's only one group of people that can remove me from office. So I get what you're saying, but I also disagree. I don't know if I would look at a survey of residents in Harriman and then say I completely disregard what the elected official and the mayors. Now, if there was division within the mayor and the council, then I think maybe some insight and understanding where things sit. Maybe, okay, I think in that instance, maybe that'd be useful. I don't think that there is division through your elected officials. I'm just posing the question. I'm not saying, I'm not deciding this. I'm just saying, for me, that survey of those residents would not have an impact on what their elected officials are wanting to
So
accomplish.
your bias is towards what the elected officials want more than what the.
My bias is the
I'm not
fact,
saying they would even want something different.
My bias-
They're gonna say, yes, let's get us out of here. I mean.
my bias is the fact that we all incorporated. All of us incorporated for a purpose to be able to control our own destiny. That is why Cottonwood Heights did it. That's why we split school districts. You can go on and on. Some of these cities have a long, long history. We're 20 years old. We're young. We did it because we did not like outside forces controlling the future of our city and our residents. So I don't know if I would then say, I'm gonna then do the opposite of that. And I'm going to continue to have these dictates be over my city.
Reframe this just for a second. So when we were kind of putting all this together and the thought of doing a survey, like, I don't think we thought it was going to be a controversial thing. And so it wasn't like, we thought like, this is the be all end all, we need to see the president say whatever they say is what we're gonna do. The only reason we're even having this discussion is because it kind of did end up becoming like more split than we expected, and some people feel we should and some people feel we shouldn't. And so do you feel so strongly that we shouldn't, that you think that it would actually have a negative impact to do one? Or are you just saying, yeah, do one, and it may or may not affect my vote? So I think that's what everyone
No,
thinks.
overall, whenever you get this info, you have a group of people that are saying, I sure hope that it comes a little slanted this way. Then we can use that and say, see, we really shouldn't do this. It's a game. And I don't, unless you're gonna really legitimately do it, I don't think it's not real legitimate data. We do these things as cities and we get input. That does not mean that the residents have spoken. Does that make sense?
So when we do like our survey residents once a year here, like, should we stop doing that?
Well, I share that information with my city every single year. And then they also ask the question, so does that mean that we should do X? And every single time it's no, that is not a true legitimate sample size of our city. This should not drive policy. And that's the conclusion that we come to every time. And if we use that data to drive policy, that would be, in my opinion, that would be foolish. That is not true legitimate data that drives policy decisions. That survey that we do is not complete. That gives insight. That is not a complete picture.
I wanted, when we talk about a survey and that would allow an entity to lead, that smacks to me of ballot initiatives. And I feel, and I know they're very controversial, but at the end of the day, ballot initiatives to me should be a tool for elected officials to be making decisions. It's not the end all, it's not the answer. Otherwise, there's no reason for us to be on a board
Right.
other than to say, adjust this, that, or the other, but take the survey and then the residents will tell you how to run the budget or whatever it is. So I like the surveys, but I use them as a tool to whether or not I am doing it. I'm doing what the residents would want, even if they disagreed with me and I felt really powerfully strong that I'm gonna vote differently than those residents, I'm gonna do that. Just because that's what they've elected me to do. And if they don't like my decision, then I'm not elected again. And that's good, right? That's good governance, is that we expect our elected officials to be making decisions best for, in this case, I really understand where you're coming from, Rachel. I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. We have to represent the district as a whole, and we have to represent best practices for all of our districts. But I also have to represent Taylorsville, and I'm not going to do that on a survey. I'm going to use that as advice.
But I guess that's all I see is like, it's not a BLM. It's one piece. It's been a minute since we looked at like the whole list of things that we have to meet to say, to check off all of the boxes to say, like, it really is in the best interest. Which it's sounding like, I mean, it is probably it's going to be just that it's better off for us financially. But there was like 10 things on the list that we have to check off. And so to me, it's just part of, I guess that's why it's so controversial, because it's not like we're hanging our hat on the residents want to stay or the residents want to go. I think we're just like, in this holistic review, this is something that we're looking at. And as you say, for good governance, it's information. It's not deciding for you. It's just information.
If it's given as information and it's not.
Corey's having a
No, sorry.
Go ahead, Corey. I'm you first.
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I think one thing we also have to remember is one of our ultimate jobs when we are sworn in is to make sure that we are running government effective and efficiently and as cost effective for the taxpayer as possible. And so there's a lot of tools you can use. I view a survey as part of a tool, but not all of it. It is my job to research every part of what we're doing and make a decision based on all of the actual information available to me. And that may be long-term commitments, that may be a survey of the residents, that may be the cost of things as we see how they function and work with a special district. There's a lot of reasons why you make decisions, but you do need the tools to understand where everybody stands so that you're able to make good decisions. So I'm not opposed to a survey. I just want to make sure we're asking the proper questions in a survey and maybe even using it as an opportunity to educate as we do it. And on top of that, make sure that we do due diligence in all aspects of it. Once we do that, then we're doing really well and we can make a good decision ultimately.
Thanks, Art.
I was going to say, I don't mind information and I like information. I oftentimes do not see information just being information. Oftentimes, information is not always, oftentimes it's done in a way where it is see X, which means you must do X. And I just, if this truly legitimately, this is about me, Sherry, I don't know.
You're just out of my line.
But if this is just like, hey, here's the full picture, here's some info, I just don't get the sense that, and I'm probably wrong, that it would be just info. Hey, y'all, these residents, it's overwhelming, they don't want to, then what? Then what? And if you truly do say, well, we are supposed to represent them, so then do we then represent that vote of whatever that survey says? So, if it's just info, then
Yeah, I just like the holistic approach. Like when we were first starting to look at this and looking at all of the things, for me, it's just like, it's a lot. And I was like, okay, how are we even supposed to make this decision? And so I think that's just how I was seeing it. So I didn't realize it was gonna be like.
Yeah, and the other thing is the only reason we're kind of having this discussion now is because we're like in the process of drafting the RFP, and it's like, do we put that in or do we not? And that's when we brought it back. Because it's been a little like iffy. We were like, oh, we even write it in there. That's the reason we even need to know. And if we do have it in there, obviously we haven't even gotten to the point of what it's looked like yet, but all the comments you guys have made about the validity of the survey and what does it say and make sure it's not leading, like.
Would we have a say and like,
I would sure think
so
so.
I think this body's looking to make sure that we're asking the right questions and really, I mean, we're just wanting to do what's best for the district and for Harriman, and currently, Harriman's part of that, so we wanna do what's best for them, and if that's leaving, then that's great, and if it's, you know, I don't think, I think we all know that sometimes when you see resident data, it's like, we need to do a better job of educating. That's what the data is telling us, is we haven't done our job of educating as much as we should have. And sometimes it's like, maybe I need to learn more about what's going on. And so I don't think data, I mean, it's kind of what you're saying, data doesn't tell us exactly what it is. I mean, it can tell us a lot of different things rather than just like, do this or do that.
I think if you wanted to utilize it to satisfy this portion of this, the public portion of it, then fine. Make sure that you survey 51% of all the voters, get that data back, and then that might be valid. But it's not what's gonna happen. So that portion of it it doesn't satisfy anything on this. But I believe that we live in a representative republic. That's the kind of government that we have. No democracy, we have a representative republic. And I agree with that. Nobody in your city can fire me, well, because I'm not running again. Yeah. But
Says the way.
Some of us may want to.
But my residents can have it, right? And we're accountable to them. So it's incumbent upon every single person that sits in the city council seat or the mayor's seat to understand that. And I also believe that there are some decisions I've made as a council member, that some residents have been upset by. And mostly it's because they don't understand all the information. That's my job, is to gather that, sit through different meetings, fish through data, read all the stuff. Most residents who answer a survey don't understand that. They just hit the highlights and go, oh, well, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't. They don't understand the complexity of the super scrap program, right? They just want it like it was. They don't understand all the data that goes on behind that. So that's my issue with the survey. It's just, let's get the RFP done with the finance stuff. Let's check this stuff off. And then when we have good data, if we want to come back and do a survey to finalize some good things on good data, do a survey.
And we already do surveys anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, surveys are great for guiding principles. Like, what would you like to see? Would you like to see $6 a month savings, or would you like to see a better dumpster program? Or would you like, give us some idea of the direction of the different things, of all the things, and not saying, do you want to save $6? Because nobody's gonna say no.
And you know, Zach, you're absolutely right, not to interrupt you, but Eric, I think it would take us 24 hours to come up with a survey that all of us thought would be appropriate for this situation. And I have to go back to what Sherry said, this is a representative democracy, and I feel like that surveys are nothing more than a guiding tool that you just said.
It's for.
And so for us to sit around and hope that we could come up with a survey that we all agree upon for this very specific, how does a city leave a district, is that gonna work?
So if we were going the petition route, the petition happened, we were given a petition, that sets in motion statutory, timeline of doing the withdrawal. Like, we have so many days after we get that petition to do this and do that, and we're mandated to do that. When we're doing it this way, Harriman's already done their part. They feel like they've made their decision to move forward. And so what this board needs to do is, are we going to rise to that to even do the initiation petition, which we haven't done yet? And even after that, there's then things set in motion. And so what we're trying to get for you guys is what information do you feel you need to even make that decision of, do we even engage in this mutual process? Let alone vote to approve it. Because let's say you got this feasibility study that says, yeah, they could leave and it's fine. That is not a mandate to you guys to say yes. You guys still have the discretion of this board. So what is going to be useful for you as a board to say, yes, we actually want to make a policy decision of pursuing the withdrawal?
I mean, if any of you all in your city put a request into this board, should we take that seriously, or should we just dismiss it?
I think we're dismissing.
No, that's a question. No, I'm not saying that. The question was, we don't have to, right? We're not even down that step. So to answer that question, I feel like if this is something is that important to you, I feel like we should I mean, it sounds like we have to vote to go, not right now,
Mhm.
to progress through the process,
Right.
correct?
Right,
So I feel like that's the least, the minimum that we,
yeah.
you know, that you're owed.
To be fair, like the reason that we're also looking at the financial stuff first is because if we do initiate the process, then ultimately when we get to the decision phase, you are required to say no if those conditions are met. So our thought is like, why even initiate if it's going to be in? So we're not exactly getting the credit for the course, but we're doing the analysis before this board even decides if we want to pursue it for that reason.
But the analysis is so important for this board, period.
Yeah.
Even if we were talking about a withdrawal, we should know that information. We should understand it. And so I think that
Everybody?
for this district should understand how much it costs to serve.
Well, isn't that why we start splitting up the RFPs?
Yeah,
So that we
exactly.
do that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that for me, it would be data, get the data, because then you know whether you initiate it and go down that road. Same with Harriman, quite frankly, at some point too, right? We know what, we've done RFPs and understand the difference between the two. But it's like, it'll be really interesting to see our data from this team to understand, here's what it's costing to serve. It might be very expensive to serve her. So let's understand that.
So Jerry knows it's gonna have a big negative impact on my city. You're probably getting a no from me.
Well, you gotta think that this is not, I mean, I'm a new guy here, right? And I represent, I believe, looking around the table, the oldest city among the group of cities here. West Jordan's been around, I think, longer than anybody else. Salt Lake County doesn't count longer, so. But that's only because we just annexed an unincorporated part, that's the only reason I'm here, right? And it's in my district, and that's why they picked me. I volunteered. But I've gotta think that this is not gonna be a unique situation. As cities incorporate and as cities choose to chart their own course and choose their own destiny, how long until Mill Creek decides that they wanna put out an RFP and see if Ace or Waste Management or whoever can do a better job? Or Taylorsville or Holiday or whoever, you know, how long is it gonna be?
Yeah, you haven't been here for all of this discussion, but one of the key parts of the statute that you guys can consider when you're analyzing this is what would be the effective cumulative withdrawals.
Right.
And so that's something this board does have an discretion to say, it's like, you don't even want to start this domino effect of people leaving.
Right.
Because you guys are all coming from the cities, and I know I'm sorry, I can't help but be a district advocate, because that's what I do, I represent special districts. But there's a lot of, push and desire to keep special districts strong too, and there's been lawsuits, White City, to prove that special districts are on par with municipalities legally. And so there's a lot that goes into it, that's why, you know.
And we want.
Yeah, they want.
Again, you're right, I'm new to the conversations, but how long until the legislature steps in and says, just like they said, all your little unincorporated islands now have to annex or incorporate or do whatever, how until they step in and say special districts, you have to act this way or that way?
Well,
And start forcing our hands because the unincorporated.
Depends on the ways. Some districts would lend themselves easier to being pulled apart than others.
So just to keep this from going on.
The question.
Question is, we put in the RFP or not?
Yeah, I guess that's the main question. I don't think anybody is.
The return on the investment, I don't think is all that helpful. If they want to leave, we need to financially figure out what that means.
And then at the end of the day, when we get that data back, we go, it'd be really helpful too if we had this survey.
Yeah.
We need a survey, then that would be an RFP.
We'll send the bill to Jerry.
To be clear, there would be a cost to the survey, that's correct, whatever it is, there is a cost, correct? So for me personally, I don't think it's worth spending any money on. That's just,
Especially if it's not gonna be persuasive.
And the surveys are pretty pricey. What do we spend on that survey every year?
It's like burden.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's pricey.
It's almost a car.
to the chairs.
Now we know where the
Yeah.
car money is.
Exactly.
Chairs were served.
So you need to make an official
I
vote.
think, but I can support what you guys are saying, like, I'm not, it's not exactly that good anymore.
Chair, are you looking for a vote for the survey or against it, or is staff just looking for direction?
I think we're just looking for direction, but, Ben would like to summarize.
Yeah, so there were a couple pieces here, and I should have mentioned earlier on, is that the idea would be to incorporate this survey as part of the RFP that we discussed earlier, tied into the withdrawal process. So the intent of that survey would be a objective, impartial, third party, and we've already drafted some preliminary language that would make sure that it's statistically significant and representative of residents serviced by this organization that live in Harriman. The other piece, and there's been some other discussion related to what presumably the impacts may or may not be to this organization if Harriman would presumably be permitted to withdraw as per this board's decision. And we won't know until we really do this study and analysis, which we've discussed. And I would just point out that although that, yes, Harriman is a little bit further outside of where we dispatch from, and it may be more expensive, but I think we could probably say, just by looking at a map, there's other service areas that are probably more obviously more expensive for this organization to service. So with that, then lead to the thought or the logic that, well, why don't we just let them leave? Why don't we just withdraw from them? It's just conversely, Harriman is one of our top 3 population centers. It is a growing population center. And to my understanding, the population that we're servicing is in a largely somewhat dense area. So the other piece of this, by losing customers, by losing service areas that are under this district's current purview, will have the potential to affect our economies. Right, we've talked about that a lot. So economies of scale, and basically as you increase your units of production, your cost per unit goes down. Right, so by allowing potentially Harriman to withdraw, there's a lot of other impacts that would be part of this analysis, which would include our billing, our customer service department, our management efficiencies, our efficiencies in developing and administering contracts that are being with the district. So there's a lot of other pieces that we need to look at as part of this analysis. And so not only until we do that feasibility analysis, and the survey, as we've discussed, and I'm kind of jumping around this point, but the survey would be intended to be a tool in addition to the remaining information that could be a tool for this board to consider as an additional resource to gather as much information as possible to make the most informed decisions. So the idea was, for this agenda item was whether or not this board would like us to include that survey as part of the feasibility analysis, or if it's okay with holding out on that. So staff was recommending to include it, to provide that full data set to this board. And so we're ultimately looking for consent, not necessarily a vote, but ultimately, will this board like to definitively include that survey as part of this RFP for the feasibility withdrawal analysis, or is it something that we should take out of that form?
If I can just say real quickly, what you just said, to me, proves why we don't need a survey, because what you just said earlier is one of the most compelling things of why Harriman has an uphill battle. Because all of those things that you just said are massively compelling on what is the impact going to be to the health of the district, so that we can go to our residents and say, we're not gonna be jacking up your prices a ton. That, for me and me alone, is what is really at the heart of all of this. And to spend money on a resident survey of individuals in Harriman is, for me, not part of the calculus.
Because you ultimately just don't feel like the data is good enough to, that's.
Well, and I just, me,
Yeah, no.
I do not believe that I'm going to then sit there and say, economics look good, it's gonna help, it's financially better, but the residents say they want it, or flip it, this is gonna financially crush it, but they want it. It does not tell me in either way.
Does it factor in?
It is not worth the cost. I don't even know what the cost is.
You have convinced me.
I'm personally up in the air and don't really care. I think it seems
Chairman, if I may, that the overall thought of the board is no. Is that fair to say?
That's my job.
Oh,
That's fair, but we're at seven. Nominate him as vice chair.
7:25.
I was gonna actually have that, I like to let everybody kind of get their, get their opinions in and consensus, and it's just been kind of swirling around, this discussion is kind of just circling and circling. If I'm not mistaken, the survey would be required at some point, but obviously not required, because it's more of a petition, not a survey.
it's not.
Okay. That's my mistake. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like the consensus is that we don't need survey. Necessary. Agree?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right. What's the next item?
All right.
I have something at 8.
You know what?
I may have to.
Okay.
It sounds fun, so I'm gonna follow.
Yeah, we'll back again.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the approach we were looking at as part of the budget presentation was to separate out the financial piece from the withdrawal feasibility analysis. And so the thought was there that financial line of service by geographic area analysis is going to take a significant amount of time and Woodward staff resources accordingly. So the idea was to move forward with the Harriman withdrawal feasibility analysis and impact analysis because we feel that we have the information readily available for a third-party firm to conduct that analysis. Secondly, would then be the financial line of service by geographic area study. And so that was kind of the intended approach. It's more specified from a chronological standpoint in that presentation. So maybe I guess if I could ask, maybe would the board be willing to provide a consent on that approach? Or do they see it as the reverse as part of that?
I can tell you that in our meeting with these guys, our team recommended the other way, that get all the information, easy to pull Harriman out of that information, which have it on. But that's how we can prefer it to be.
I guess it depends on the time, because doing that financial analysis first is gonna be, this one will get extended for months, possibly through the remainder.
Just to clarify, it is to get the collective data versus just. That right?
Yeah.
I mean, getting the collective data is gonna take longer, obviously, right? So if you,
It's beyond the scope of what's like a pyramid, we're talking like. Looking at new better rates of fee structures and things like that. Seems like it's beyond the scope of just one us in the pyramid.
I guess that's different than what I had thought, because in our discussions, it was just basically to find out what the cost to serve within the areas of our district was. And you're just saying you want to expand the RFP much broader and understand what costs are.
Can we still?
Lori's, getting ready to leave, she's gonna need a buff.
It's 9, oh, 10 now, is it 9 or 10? Because we added that.
How big is this? I don't even know.
I just can't see results online.
do we even have?
There is no one.
That's
Seven.
Oh.
I couldn't see them, so I was just wanting to make sure that we were still good.
So Evan, restate the question here.
Yes, so the intent of kind of splitting these up into two, so that the combined RFP became far too complex. And so what we've looked at and what I would like to move forward with is looking at a very comprehensive that line of service financial analysis by each type of operation that we perform. So our cost for trash, separate from recycling, separate from green waste, separate from scrap, but also by geographic servicing, which are fairly robust, data intensive, and will definitely be a lot of work for Woodward staff, all we know our team, to provide to a third-party financial consultant to conduct those analyses and related studies. So the idea was that as part of the Harriman withdrawal feasibility analysis as it pertains to the criteria to look at as whether or not a withdrawal should be considered, approved, or denied. And I don't want to speak for Rachel, who's the attorney here. We feel like we have the information readily available to conduct that particular analysis. So the thought was to move forward with that withdrawal feasibility analysis first, secondary, or in some cases even possibly simultaneously with that widespread, large-scale financial study. So it would be split into two separate documents, but the large-scale financial analysis would not be tied to a prospective member city.
I think that's data that we need to have. It sounds like it's, from the sounds of it, if I was running a business, I would want to be able to know that, right? Or when I had a business, when I had my own business, or when I was managing a retail location, I could look at how many of this product type I sold versus how many of this product type and where I sold it to and who I sold it to and how much it cost me. I could look at that. I think that's part and parcel to running the whole thing. I think we need that. So however you think is the best way to get that data, I think is.
But I have a question, how are you gonna satisfy the other part of the statute that says if multiple withdrawals happen? If you don't know what it costs, if multiple people leave, if you do impairments first, how would you understand the other portion of that to even initially go down the process without understanding what it costs for the other ones?
It's a great question. I think largely it's going to be looking at the loss of revenues, the loss of efficiencies related. So there's a lot of information we have that we can back into expenses to revenues, although it won't be specific by an exact geographic sense. I think that's kind of the thought there. And so for heroin, we know how many routes, how many trucks, how many employees are servicing the area, how many tons that we're collecting, volumes of various disposition facilities. So as part of the evaluation criteria, it is in some essence basic. I feel like we have that basic information that can move forward with that analysis sooner rather than later, as opposed to doing a full-blown financial analysis of the entire district's finances. And so as a district, we are currently providing a single base user rate that is spread across the cost of the entirety of the district. So if we looked at things generally speaking, we could just use that simple mathematical model and divide out the operational costs amongst the residents that we're servicing and ultimately the services that we're providing through recycle, trash, free waste, et cetera. I come up with that generalized number, but it wouldn't be specific to geography.
But not to the cost.
So just for sake of time, I don't know if we need to push this discussion to the next meeting or do we have?
Can I make a suggestion? You guys have, because we marked up the RFP thing and sent it over to you. And so why don't you make the adjustments you're talking about and send it back if it's okay with the board and let our team look at the changes and then you can bring it back and see if everybody's okay with that. Is that all right?
Yeah, and that's been our intent. So we wanted to have this discussion and understand the board's thoughts on the survey and then splitting these up into two pieces and understanding the sequencing or the chronological sequence of these factors. So that was kind of the step that's going to lead us to now making this exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, because I question really the ability to satisfy the statute with the what happens if multiple people leave if you don't have the information and you're just gathering it generally based on this is generally what it costs, because it definitely costs to serve different areas.
All right, I'm gonna we'll, I guess, postpone that, you give it to.
Yes, yeah, good discussion.
We can at least, come back and revisit that with more time, hopefully, so. 5.6, status of financial planning and services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We mentioned that in our changing auditors, but I'm not sure remember that we extended Squire Company for another year. And asked councilors who formally adopted a policy years ago to change auditors every 3 years. And last year you extended another year because of circumstances for on the web. We sent out an RFP and we received one response from our current private square. I actually went out and reached out to the firms that I had sent directly to the RFP. And two of them responded and came out why they did not submit a proposal. One is that the 3 to 5 years is not enough for them to actually turn on it as a requires checks to set up and working on a private market instead of working through all that differently. So they didn't want to get contract for 3 years. The other said that they have SEC and HUD clients that would be due about the time that we would want the information back from them, and so they would not even be able to begin a field until then. So they couldn't fit us into the schedule, and if they did submit a proposal, it would be more money than we have been paying, or that we always spend.
Honest, don't
It was original to get her back from. So what we're here doing tonight is asking for one, two. Well, there were 3 options that would be happening. One of them that I'm looking to start with is the one that I'm looking to start over, do another RFP, and hopefully get information at the time, and then we start an audit and get everything done. The statutory deadline of publishing our June 30th. That's one that kind of look that we put down. Sleep, not to choose that one. The other 2 are you could possibly approve another 1-year extension. We would go out for RFP again, send it out maybe a little bit earlier. One of my philosophies or thoughts was perhaps we send it out too late. People already get their schedules out, we could fit us in, short staff. I don't know response. And so if we did a 1-year extension, we could send it out again and see what happens. The other would be to approve this for the 3-year period that we did submit that one for. And then possibly look at maybe changing the policy of time to the contracts, not for some player again, but we'll make our RFP again, so that possibly we can get some more respondents.
Do you have a recommendation of those 2? Sorry.
My preference is to do 3-year contract with Squire and then change our policy and then years.
Have you liked working with them? Did we go out because we had to? Or did you want to?
I've never worked with Squire before until last year for 2024 audit. I enjoyed working with them. I thought they were good auditors. They were really responsive. We got along well. Did a good job. My experience in other audits working with several different auditors. And so I am happy that they did actually get in the system and they made them to switch. But I like Squire.
But in my opinion, we put out an RFP and they submitted and.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's all they're doing.
exactly.
Kind of like you can put out a survey and then only one.
Now we're talking.
So.
Chair, I would say that, at my role as the National Service District, Squire has, done a great job there. They also do our independent audit for Town of Brighton. So again, we've worked with them and they're respectable. They are responsive. They've worked through the audits and they've been excellent in working with staff. So again, if we submit the RFP, one group that is feasible alternative, that is them.
Do you like?
Yeah, we do.
So like you have your marching orders.
Thank you.
Good.
I would just simply add, let's, probably just get these RFPs in earlier, just to make sure we're in front of the line. This time, just to kind of honor the, comfortableness of getting comfortable to the bottom. Some previous policy fast, right?
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we were gonna kind of have a closed session, but we don't need to, so. We're not gonna.
Let's just go.
We're out of time, so, other board business, we just have one item. We have a retiring board member. When we cannot officially adopt this, I'd like to go ahead and just read it in anyway, and we'll.
And we vote no?
The next board meeting,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what we're gonna hold in December so we can.
So, this is a resolution of the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District Board of Trustees expressing appreciation to board member Sherry Moore. Resolution number 4438 adopted November 17, 2025, and December next that. So, not today. Be it known and remembered that Everett's Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District, formerly known as the Salt Lake County Special Services District Number 1, was established in January 1977 by the Salt Lake County Commissioners and renamed the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District effective as of January 1st, 2013. And whereas on November 10th, 2009, the Salt Lake County Council created the Administrative Control Board to govern the district effective January 1st, 2010. And whereas on March 16th, 2022, the county council recognized the district as a local district, and the board of trustees was granted full governing authority as allowed as members. As on power under the state statute. And whereas Sherry Horn was appointed to the board by the Harriman City Council in February 2018. And whereas this honorable board member has served their respective constituents faithfully and diligently, and whereas the board has been effective in governing the district and waste and recycling collection services for its 86,000 households, and whereas this honorable board member has retired from the board, and whereas the district wishes to express appreciation to this board member for their years of dedicated service. And now therefore be it resolved by the board that this member is appreciated and recognized. We applaud all the efforts of the board members and district staff approved and adopted today. This 17th day of November of 2000. Thank you, Lauren. I understand we'll have a more formal one at the next meeting if you'd like to join us.
Severance package.
Yeah, we'll probably throw in severance package.
I just bring my trash can.
Not exceeding $50.
Continue.
Okay. But yes, thank you so much. And you've been on this board since I've lived back in Utah. It's pretty cool.
It's been fun to serve 2 more meetings with you. Got like 6 meetings on Jordan Valley together.
All right, to finish up, request items for the next board meeting, I will just say as listed, and everybody can read those. And I will now take a motion.
Motion to adjourn, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. You have a second?
Second.
Gary, I was just gonna suggest that you could, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I really appreciate everybody sticking through. That was a long session.
The motion to adjourn is seconded is by motion to cancel a meeting. It's better than not even show up,
Seriously, me, does the meeting never happen?
right?
Got a sandwich on your way to the house.
I have a question, though, now that, we have